Hey, Tex.
Luke, my friend, how are you?
I'm good. I'm joined here, Tex, today by a friend of the podcast, John Wellborn.
I'm always here, just overseeing, watching, listening, looking,
Judging.
Judging.
Look at the baby.
Look at
the baby.
Judging. Ladies and gentlemen, and if you're listening to this, you're listening to another episode of the Premier Podcast in Strength and Conditioning.
Ing.
That's right, people. Power Athlete Radio is back. Myself, Tex, John, we're here for another crew episode. We have a lot to chew. No, wait, we've bit off more than we can chew in this episode, or have we? In answering a listener, I mean? Well, I guess we're on YouTube too. Viewer/listener, and not the other way around, question.
You mean listener/viewer?
No, that's
Actor
ridiculous.
/model?
Not the other way around.
I think he just watches us.
These ain't no slashies, folks. This is a question that was submitted to the hotline. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Power Athlete Radio has a hotline for you
To ask questions
about
things for us to discuss on the podcast.
That's right.
Not just calling up asking questions about merchandise or which program.
Well, I mean, I'm going to call that guy back. He seemed nice enough.
Hey, I'm kind of a lean 5'10". Should I be wearing a large or a medium?
So you can ask questions.
3XL stout.
You can ask questions / say statements, or the other way around as well, because we have we got some feedback on our Vision Quest. Our guy,
Oh my.
so Vision Quest episode 378, right? We did a review of Vision Quest.
I believe
and
so.
The original question asker had to say this. I don't know how loud this is going to be.
Power Athlete Radio! Now I know how you feel about Vision Quest!
Yeah, you do.
Power Athlete Radio, somewheres right now, Zach Evans is listening to it, getting super fired up as the world trembles beneath his feet because his power level's over 9,000!
9,000.
Power Athlete Radio, loves and hugs!
Loves and hugs, Tex. It wasn't until I received this voicemail, gentlemen, that I knew what this podcast was really all about. And it's loves and hugs. You think it's battling the bullshit. You think it's empowering performance. No, this is about giving people's brains some love and a hug.
Well,
We
just wait.
do brain hugs.
Just wait till we get Matthew Modine himself on the show.
Yes,
Pretty excited.
it's
So
happening.
shout out to our listeners and viewer for getting 300 some odd likes. For
Yeah.
Thanks,
Matthew.
Mom.
Yeah.
Modine's coming on. We're
Yeah.
going to make it happen.
I mean, 6 hours on the phone with my mom on how to set up a Twitter account, so she did like it.
Well, she's got all those Twitter bots working for her.
Yeah. And then her handle's Big Booty Ho, which is so weird. And she's been
I thought
on
it
for
was
14 years.
I thought it was Slam Piece 001.
No. You don't want to know about Slam Feast 001. Ladies and gentlemen, the line is open for you to ask questions so we can give you some answers. That number is 929-ING-0. That's 929-464-4640. And we do have a legit question coming in today about some bulking, about some nutrition. Let's see what our listener has to say. You boys ready?
Listos.
Hey, crew, it's Chris in Chicago calling. I was just calling to ask you a question on something. Quick description. I'm 34. I'm about 215 pounds, probably 18-20% body fat. And life situation, we've been nesting over the past couple of months due to COVID. And I got our first baby due in a couple of weeks. So I've come to the grips with the reality of the situation and started building out my home gym,
Nice.
figuring I might be homebound for a while. Been grindstoning for a couple of years. Took a brief hiatus when local gyms shut down and everything during quarantine. So I'm definitely a little bit doughier than usual here. Love the Third Monkey content, though, as well. But my question is, in light of my situation, building out a home gym, I'm trying to get back in the habit, and I'm curious as to your thoughts on the best techniques, maybe ways that I might be able to build out 10 to 15 pounds of lean muscle as I'm dealing with my situation at home and, the limitations of maybe a home gym and not having all the equipment available to me. So anyways, look forward to hearing the response. Thanks, guys. Love the podcast.
Love ya suit. Chris from Chicago. That's Chicago Sports Radio. Boers and Bernstein, inside joke. You guys wouldn't get it.
I don't get
Love
it.
ya show. Love ya suit. Maybe 3 3 of the 6 listeners out there will know what I'm talking about. So here we go. Chris from Chicago.
34, 215, 18% body fat. Do you think that's accurate?
It depends on the person, right? You could probably. So what does 18% body fat look like in a mirror, John?
I don't know. Tex, stand up and show us.
Yeah, take off your pants. Ooh, hubba. That's more like 15.
Well,
15 to 18?
15, you should have some visible ab.
Okay.
18 to 20,
Flex hard, they're there.
well, yeah, I don't want you to poop yourself. 18 to 20, no visible abs.
Still holding.
And
A little bit like a belly over the belt.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
And especially like the back dad fat.
Yeah,
right?
you'd probably end up with a little bit of that that back dad fat.
Probably not seeing too many
the back bacon.
much delt definition either.
It depends on how much
Does it?
muscle.
Yeah.
Like I've seen guys that were pretty muscular
Yeah,
at one
good
time
point.
that gains a little body fat, and they tend to still have some shoulders and some arms.
Mm-hmm.
But at 215 pounds, you're thinking 20%, 40 pounds of body fat. You're looking at roughly 15 would be 25, so 175 pounds of lean body mass.
Ish.
Yeah. So.
So here's the thing about this. In this,
There's a lot.
sadly, yeah, like there's a lot to unpack here. Number one, ladies and gentlemen, we would refer to this as a bulking protocol.
Yeah, if he's looking to try to put on 20 pounds of lean body mass,
Right.
you're going to have to, it's very difficult to put on just 20 pounds of muscle unless you're talking about performance enhancing and adding a ton of drugs
Right.
into the mix, which I'm just guessing a new father isn't deciding to, take
Yeah,
a gram
34.
a test a week and, gram a tren or something. So he's probably trying to do it naturally. So to put on that type of lean body mass naturally, you're going to have to gain a decent amount of body fat.
Right.
So you're going to probably look at maybe 20 pounds. You're probably going to at least put on 30 pounds of body weight, if not more.
Right. Yeah. And so this question comes in more frequently than not. And we should probably, so this is a great opportunity to put this content out here and say, hey, listen, go listen to this episode, because there's the environment to bulk has to be set up. It's like, when, the scene in 40-Year-Old Virgin where I think he's going to crank it for the first time, and he gets the candles all lit. He's got the aromatherapy, and he's got the right music on and the right pictures. You know what I'm talking about?
I can't remember that part.
That's the right movie, isn't it?
You are correct.
But he's creating the perfect ambiance for the first time.
I think it's
himself.
George Michael playing.
Wait, so in the 40-Year-Old Virgin, he was not only a virgin, but he had never cranked it?
I don't think so.
I don't remember that. That's that plot line.
Now, this is a far analogy, but in my experience personally, having done a very aggressive bulk, McQuilkin.
I want to build on that as well. Go.
And in getting people successfully bulked up in our nutrition business and through nutrition coaching, the stage has to be set. So if you're living a life that necessitates Grindstone, which is our flex program for the busy professional or new parent, the state that's already a red flag for me, because the stage doesn't seem to be set, because you need to be able to sleep and you need to be able to train yourself into the bulk.
Yeah.
In my most successful period of the bulk, when we did 22 Jack Street back in 2014, 2014-15, was out of the gate the first 8 weeks when we were excited about it.
Yeah.
And we were training our balls off. That was when the weight gain, it wasn't all lean mass, John, but the shape of my body maintained a taper. And then it just kind of went pear, if you remember. I was wearing pregnancy pants.
You were wearing sweatpants. Remember, you showed up to work and you're like, I'm not wearing pants or jeans anymore. I'm wearing sweatpants.
Yeah.
I blew them out. I'm not wearing them. I'm like,
and you're like, what's with the rag on the stick? It's so I could wash myself, man.
And for reference, I was 200 to start 22 Jack Street, and eating, holy shit, that was a full-time job.
Yeah.
And I plateaued at 205 for majority of the 22 weeks. And then we had a Rob Wolf podcast.
Yep.
And he suggested this stair-stepper approach. And that's when I took off. But my totals, and this is where Chris, our listener here, wanted to gain 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. My total for 22 weeks on an extreme high volume training program plus excessive calories, about 4,000, I gained 12 pounds of lean body mass and 8 pounds of fat.
So, and here's the thing, too, the research will tell you, however much you want it, but if you're really hammering it, a healthy adult dude can add about a half pound to a pound of muscle a week. And that's a healthy, like...
A week?
Yeah.
Wow.
But here's the assumption, okay? Because I looked this up for a dude when I was battling him. It's 5 training days. 5 90-minute training days.
Wow. To drive the adaptation needed.
So that was the part of the study. And they said, like, you're probably realistically looking for most people about like 0.2 to 0.25 pounds a week of muscle, which lines up with Tex, right? Coming after 20 weeks, you're looking at little under a half pound of muscle for your gains, for 12 pounds of lean mass and 8 of fat. So let's back up a little bit, John. New baby's coming.
Yeah, the baby fog.
So that's already gonna peel you out of sleep.
Well,
the sleep needed.
He had me until new father.
Yeah.
And then I was like, grindstone, bulk. There's just a lot of things, like a lot of pieces that don't line up. I would recommend that if somebody was trying to bulk and put on a ton of lean body mass, they'd probably follow Jack Street. Would be the program that I would recommend.
For our new listeners that are unfamiliar with these 2 training programs, John, can you explain the difference between the 2, starting with Grindstone?
Grindstone, the program is really an interesting adaptation of the power athlete methodology, and that what I wanted to do was design a flexible training program. So what I did is I went through and I earmarked days. So we have a mandatory A and B, and those 2 mandatory A and Bs are uppers and lowers and kind of a little mix. They're heavy on PAP, post-activation potentiation. We use a bunch of French contrast. It's usually do something heavy, do something fast, do something dynamic, and we kind of move back. I found that using the post-activation potentiation training for that group of individuals that tend to follow it, it was extremely beneficial. It also forces them to move at a certain pace that I can not only push conditioning and build that kind of low-level aerobic, a ton of capacity. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, emailing them on the Grindstone program, the idea about pushing the rest sets. Everybody's so, like, well, how long do I rest here? Well, how long do you need to recover in between? I wear a heart rate monitor, so I know exactly, like, hey, at the end of that set, how long does it take for me to recover? And as soon as it hits one of the zones, I go back into it. So you can look at it like that. But what I found is that the better condition I got and the better base level of aerobic conditioning I gained, the better my strength was, because I could recover faster in between sets, and I had better effort during the set. So we use a ton of conditioning. I break it up into an upper lower. Once you get done with that A and B day, then you have kind of a barrage of other days that look like an aerobic day, hypertrophy, metabolic conditioning, glycolytic day, and they're listed up kind of in a hierarchy. And based upon your need and what you can fit into your training, the first 2 training days obviously are going to be your mandatory A and B, and then you backfill with what you can do.
Based off your schedule, based off equipment, based off your goals, or maybe based off just what you feel like doing that week.
Yeah.
Because you want to get the work in, but A and B is where really what makes where the magic happens. You get your intensity work, your higher load work, but it's still the way you lay it out with the PAP. It's like it's easier to recover from than like a ton of fucking volume.
Well, and we're also using a bunch of blood flow restricted training in this cycle for the next 9 weeks. We're doing BFR, so I'll really focus on we were doing a bunch of active foot stuff. We've been doing a lot of medicine balls, which were always staples in the program, but we've
very sneaky conditioning tool.
Very. And then we've added in blood flow restriction training for the next 9 weeks. So we're always really looking at testing new stuff and using little things and finding different ways that, like, hey, I have a time constraint. I'm a new dad. I got a big job. Like, whatever it is, I can get into the gym a couple days a week, but, I need about a 45, 50, 60-minute block on the top end, but more in that 45, 50. Grindstone's the program I recommend for you.
And here, because it's about recovery, and we learned this a long time ago, right? And this was a big staple in our seminar when we were traveling around, in terms of your ability to recover. It's easier for most people to recover from intensity than it is volume.
Volume kills people. Volume crushes people.
By design, Grindstone doesn't have a ton of volume that is hard to recover from.
Yeah.
If any volume does come into play, it's recoverable volume in the sense of mostly repeated concentric efforts, like a salt bike or med ball work. There's not a ton of high volume eccentrics.
And to pile on, switching between an understanding intensity and volume, we're not talking about what we referred to at the old seminar as emotional intensity.
That was really hard.
Right? That was really difficult.
150 wall balls for time.
20, 30 minutes, even 15 10 minutes. If I'm laying down on the floor, that's how people categorize as intense.
No.
Versus
Capital
as
I.
Capital I. John, how would you quick summarize a capital I for our listeners?
I always looked at volume intensity. Intensity was always the percentage of weight that you have on your bar.
Relative to?
Yeah, to what I can do. Like if I can squat 500 pounds and I got 495 on, then, you're at, 97% intensity. And if I squat 500 and I got 250 on the bar, I'm at 50% intensity. It wasn't until that I came to the CrossFit circle and they kept referencing this thing called intensity and, like, hey, max intensity doing this. And I'm like, but there's 95 pounds on the bar. Like, what's your 1RM thruster? And there was this
blasphemy,
interesting kind of change up of like emotional intensity. And I thought that was funny that we had to talk to people about emotionally going hard, about putting max effort into something regardless. And, it goes back to the, early days talking about, hey, if there's, lift 135 like it's 500 and 500 like it's 135. I mean, you're always moving the bar with max acceleration.
Yeah, effort's assumed.
Yeah. And so hard effort was always kind of just assumed as part of the equation. So the idea of intensity is pretty interesting. And we do I use a lot of standard templates in Grindstone. To really solid, tried and true stuff that I've used for the last 20 years, things like rep maxes. So I'm real big on, finding out the rep maxes. I'm interested in 7s, 5s, 3s, 1s, doubles, whatever it looks like. And then based off of those rep maxes, I always come back and we do some form of compensatory acceleration, cat speed work, which look like, a percentage of that rep max. And at that point, you're using max acceleration as a mechanical advantage increases, so does speed. The idea that max motor unit recruitment happens with compensatory acceleration, but also with those rep maxes. And then we'll come back and we do, if we're doing bilateral work, there'll be a ton of unilateral work for accessory. I'm a big fan of, single leg Bulgarian split squats, a lot of lunging, a lot of stepping. And then at that point, after we hit through those, then we get in and we get little short bouts of conditioning. I like to use the assault bike. I like jumping rope. I like doing really anything that we can to get people in. But the goal is for you to push the bounds. I don't want you sitting around for an hour taking 10-minute rest sets. If that's the case, then we need to up your conditioning. So I've always been a big proponent of, a high level of conditioning. Not only makes us more durable, but allows us to get a more, I'd say like a more, I don't even know the word, like just a more reactive, or like a truer training response, like a more pure training response. Like you're able to reap more from the training by being in better shape. I was talking to a lady yesterday, as I said when we were emailing on our hot list. She's in such poor physical shape that she can only do Grindstone like once every 3 to 4 or 5 days. And I was like, maybe it's not the right program for you. Something like Bedrock might be better, and just be really smart. Yeah, lean and able. And as you get in better shape and kind of progress on this thing, now all of a sudden you can add more training days. And the age-old analogy of the person that can train the longest, most consistently, with the greatest relative intensity tends to make the most progress.
I believe that was from Keith Barr.
Yeah.
Episode 352 of Power Athlete Radio.
And then now contrasting Grindstone, which is still like, because of the setup of mandatory and then the availability of these optional days, can still be like a pretty. It can be
still melt your face.
Yeah, 100%. It's designed so you can attack it every single day and auto-regulate the training. Then there's Jack Street, 5 to 6 full 70 to 80 minute training sessions with big heavy lifts and tons of volume. Because the goal of Jack Street is
to get jacked.
Yeah, get jacked. So that would say, if you don't have the available equipment, time, and lifestyle to attack Jack Street,
don't half-ass it.
Yeah, then you probably shouldn't be bulking, because what you're going to put yourself in is like this highly hyper-caloric environment. And ultimately, we were talking about when my taper went to a pear shape, that's what ultimately is going to happen. You're going to have all this, everything's going to start working against you, because it's going to be stress of eating. Eating will become a stress for you, just like the stress of training, and it goes from eustress to distress and starts to work against you.
Well, the other one too is I think for you guys, especially on the bulk, I think that's like the most consistent, biggest amount of food you guys have ever eaten.
100%.
I started the bulk when I was 14. And the way you guys ate was how I ate from the time I was 14 until I was in my 30s. So like every meal was one where like you sit down and it's like one bite full at every meal. I'm going to eat everything. You're like, oh, I have to eat again. Or sitting there and being like, I have to eat 7,000 calories today and I've only eaten 3. Where am I going to get these other 4,000 calories? Right. And then you're just like,
syrup. What do you think holds my hair up, John?
Shots of olive oil, dude. That was my that was my
Yeah.
biggest one. The little shots of olive oil, and a pound of bacon and a dozen, like an omelet of a dozen eggs, like will totally get you wherever you need to go in a calorie. So like you just make these crazy protein shakes, and my mom's deal with pancakes.
I was working the high school during the bulk at Jack Street, and I told the kids, because little guys, senators' sons and things like that they needed to bulk up, and took the shots of olive oil, or I said 4 ounces a day, and they asked me how to measure
Shot
1
glass.
ounce. I said shot glass, walked away. And next thing I know, I'm going to call into the athletic director's office to explain myself of why I'm asking the kids to take shots.
So what did you learn?
Know your audience.
So they thought shots of alcohol, not shots of olive oil?
No, they went to the cafeteria because it was like a boarding style. You had kids that lived on campus, so they went to the cafeteria and were asking for shot glasses. What?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Coach McQuilkin told us to get shot glasses so we can pour our olive oil. And they're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Funny.
That is funny.
Same school that the American Heart Association secretary went to battle with me over the efficacy of eggs.
Let's get back.
That eggs are eating.
Yeah, let's get back to Chris's question here. So we've already tackled that sleep is working against him with the new kid. His training volume probably isn't enough to sustain what we're going to recommend on how to actually bulk.
More than the sleep, I think that there's an underlying level of stress in having your first kid.
Sure.
Can we paint this picture for us? I mean, the listeners that don't know. Like, what does this look like? Is there a window
They're
of leading
about
up to?
20 inches long, head, arms, feet, poop, pee all over.
Yeah,
Barf.
but
Mine barfed a lot.
Sleep. What's the recovery look like leading up to this moment?
Well,
and then the
as you
8
get-
years after.
The problem is that it's not the sleep, it's the interruption of sleep. So like what happens is you lay down, everything's fine, and then like, you're asleep for maybe an hour or 2 hours, and the next thing you're up.
Yep.
And then you're back down, you fall back asleep, and then you're up.
Yep.
And it's the disruption where I didn't sleep any longer bout than 45 minutes to an hour for 3 months, and like all of a sudden you're just like you're driving around like in this hazy fog. And I remember I went to get my blood work done, and Dr. Tom's like, it looks awful, but you're a new father. This is what I expect with twins.
Yeah. And so for twins is like certainly a kind of a unique situation in and of itself.
Sure.
But with a single baby, you're feeding every 60 to 90 minutes or 2 hours through the night. And then for the first week at least, Mama Bear is supposed to stay in bed. So that would, depending on where your baby's sleeping, Dad, like I was on the hook to get up, go get the little nugget, drop it on Mama.
Did
then
you
I had
guys
to get,
do like a bassinet in the room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, and then like the big thing too was make sure Mama Bear's fed and hydrated. So then there was like, get a little snack ready, go get her some water, make her eat it. And then for the first 7 days, like I would stay up out of solidarity. And then like we had a team huddle on day 8. And
Can't do that.
Hey, I want to be my best version of myself. And I think here's how it's going to work. Right. So then I could.
Who called the huddle?
I did.
Yeah.
And like Ash was game. And then after that, we started kind of getting a groove. And then we hit like they go through things called leaps, Tex, where it's like, no matter what you do, that baby will not shut the fuck up. And
that's
then like
where the swaddle comes in.
Yeah, so then you swaddle and you do like the Bob Wellborn thing. You shake this way,
Yeah, the shake
you
boot.
tilt this way, you do it this way. You just try different positions to
Until
get
they-
that thing to calm down. And I would let Ashley sleep and I'd try to battle the swaddle. And that was just a matter of personal pride to let that baby know, no matter how tired I am, you will never defeat me. I will always outlast
Dude,
you.
I remember Jamie was crying so much, like we couldn't get her to stop, and I like got the swaddle, and I like actually like, so like you like wrapped her arms in, and I actually used my foot. I put my foot on her and was holding her and like trying to set the swaddle even tighter. And Kate looks over and she's like, "Do you have your foot on her?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do. I'm getting this swaddle in tight."
And you tightened her so much that her body mass went to her huge melon head.
Dude, I'll show you guys. I took a picture,
Yeah.
and it's like she's like in a straitjacket, and then what you do
Totally relaxed.
is you sit down, or then you hold them. You kind of put them on your knees, and you kind of rock, and you like find all these different positions.
Yeah.
And then finally, you're like, shh. shh, and like I would just do this shushing sound.
Yep.
And the hilarious part was when I had my knee surgery, I stayed at Kelly Starrett's house and I slept on his couch. And I remember it was like 3 a.m. and I heard this like shh, and I got up thinking he was making espresso, and he was up like doing this with their daughter, like trying to get her to
Calm.
sleep, like calm her down, like the white noise sound. And so I always laugh that like people are like, oh, like you got to like. It sounds like you're frothing milk is the sound that you want to make. And as soon as you tell people like, oh really, I'm like, yeah, to the point where I thought Kelly Starrett was making espressos or cappuccinos.
So then what was your physical activity like the first 3 months? When did it start to get back to normal?
So for me, that's when I hopped on Grindstone and saw tons of great results following Grindstone until I did that. I pinched whatever I did in my neck doing teapots. And then that's where things started to really tumble down because after day 40, we put her up in the in her crib and she started sleeping 10 to 12 hours
Is that
a night.
normal or her?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's uncommon.
Yeah, that's really good.
Uncommonly good.
Yes.
So what happens is, and this is even more uncommon, like all of a sudden, like the reason that babies wake up, or at least I think so, is because their stomachs aren't big enough to hold enough food. And then once they get up over like 10 or 12, 13 pounds, all of a sudden now their stomachs are big enough to hold food longer. And then the bigger they get, the more food they can hold, and then they stay. The issue comes to, and then all of a sudden they sleep and you're like, oh man, this isn't so bad. And then they start to teeth. And then the teething, you like go in there and they're like crying with their hands in their mouth, and then they get like
Look out there as well.
Calm before the storm?
So we cut all 8 teeth. We cut in 2 days.
Wow.
So like that was just 2 nights. And then as soon as she went up after day 40 to the crib, team huddle. I proposed to Ashley, why don't you do everything? Like I said, here's what I want you to do. I don't want to have to get up if you don't need me, but I will, if you have one twinkle of like, hey, go take care of this, you have a green light to wake me up. So I would say out of the week, 3 or 4 days out of like the work week, she would be a trooper, and then maybe she'd tap me in like, I can't do it tonight. And I just get up and go. And then on the weekends, it was my deal. Like I did the evening feedings because it was also like 2 or 3 weeks until we could introduce a bottle. And it was another week till she took it from me. So that's it can disrupt your sleep a ton. And it's going to be totally different and individual based off how your baby was. But we kind of lucked out on this round, so which makes me think, rounds 2 through 6 are going to be a fucking nightmare.
Well, there'll be girls.
The next one will be a lot easier, I'm sure.
So we want to talk. So let's get back into bulking, right?
Right. So now what was the nutrition? What were y'all eating? Did you adjust because you didn't want the dad fat?
Yes. I carb cycled. I ate carbs. I had basically 0 carbs, less than 30, 40 grams a day, high protein, Roy G. Biv, as diverse diet as I could. And then when I felt like I needed carbs, I would just smash sweet potatoes or, like a gluten-free toast, or like we do gluten-free buns with burgers or something like that, and sweet potato fries. That was typically how I handled it. I don't know what you did, John.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was, it's still
Fog of war.
Yeah, like I just can't even like that point in my life. I look at those pictures and I'm like, I don't I remember like I was showing the kids some pictures, and it was like I was like, man, I totally don't even like there was 6 months of my life I just don't remember.
Yeah, that's when you hired Luke?
And just like going back and having done the bulk and having gone through baby 1, who was probably like an ideal candidate baby sleep cycle with a wife who was supporting to potentially have bulk. No way, dude. There's no way I would do it. So having a baby and bulking is, in my opinion, a no-no. However, the one thing, let's say you're not having a baby and you do fit Chris's criteria here, even at 15 to 20% body fat, you're probably not ready for a bulk, right?
He said he was 18 to 20.
Okay, so let's say...
So, yeah, you're not ready to bulk, because the problem is if you bulk, all of a sudden you're going to be 25 plus, and now all of a sudden we're putting you in a bad position. So I don't really like for people to bulk unless they're fairly lean. So
let me dig into that real quick, because I think we talked about it before the show, because as you're bulking, for every pound of muscle you gain, if you're doing it great, you're probably gaining a half pound of fat.
If not more.
Yeah. So that would put you, after your bulking goal is achieved over 30, 40 weeks, maybe 50 weeks, that still puts you at like 25% body fat, which is not a good spot to be in. So sorry, John, to go back. Yeah. So then you want him to get leaner first?
Yeah, no, I mean, ideally it's kind of an ebb and flow. If you're going to bulk, then you almost have to, and I fucking hate this like bulking, leaning bullshit that you see on the internet. But if you want to put on lean body mass, you have to assume that you're going to put on fat. Like the age old, like, oh, these clean bulks and these guys that are like, oh, I put on 20 pounds of lean body mass and didn't gain an ounce of fat. It's fucking bullshit. Mm-hmm. It's internet folklore, Instagram nonsense. Like if you're going to put on muscle, you're going to put on some fat. And then what you do is you end up gaining up, you kind of put the set, and then you got to kind of diet back down. So ideally, what I would do is said, hey, if you were going to want to bulk and you want to put on that 20 pounds of lean body mass, we got to diet you down a little bit and get you in that 10 to 12% range, because as we go back up, you're going to get back to that 18 to 20.
Right. And then as you start to get over that 20%, like just the biology isn't in your favor to put on muscle. So
then you have like metabolic derangement.
It's possible, but we're just like, what we have to do when we give these recommendations, folks, is like play the odds for the largest swath of people. You know, I guess it is possible, but it'd have to be a highly individualized approach where you're really investing in regular blood work. You're really investing in like monitoring everything going on.
The easiest bulk,
it ain't happening.
The easiest bulk is if you've been there before.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have no doubt I could be back at 300 pounds pretty easy.
Yeah, ditto.
Yeah, like me. I could having been there 2X. At like 300 pounds for probably 13, 14 years of my life. All of a sudden it would just be like, oh yeah, no problem. I put on 20 pounds pretty easy. Whereas I think for people that have never been there and you have to push the set,
it's called cultivating mass.
Okay, so let's then build out a scenario. Chris has the baby. Let's say he's 6 months in. The baby's sleeping. They're not doing round 2 for the baby, or maybe they are. But like things start to normalize. He can start to hop on Jack Street, get 5 to 6, 60 to 70 minute training sessions in that are full, like is with training that is designed with volume and intensity to get jacked.
Well,
like Jack Street.
I wouldn't attempt the bulk until you had the time for Jack Street.
Yeah.
If you're in a position where like Grindstone is still like, hey man, I'm only able to get 3 days a week on Grindstone, and you're not even able to approach the kind of the frequency and the training program like Jack Street. And I know that's kind of shitty, and I'm sure people are like, oh no. I mean, no, like be smart. If you're gonna invest the money and not only into supplements and food and making this deal, put yourself in the most advantageous environment to make the most gains by following a program like Jack Street.
Totally. And as someone who has suffered, in my opinion, a bad bulk, then unwinding a lot of that is work. Like unwinding a bad bulk is as much work, if not more, than the bulk itself, which is a lot of work. So with all that said, then it comes into calories in, calories out. So you're sitting around 10% body fat to start the bulk. You jump on Jack Street. You're attacking the training with the fury of 1,000 suns. The biggest component of your food that's going to help you get jacked is protein.
Yeah, the one macronutrient I've found most readily kind of available or for body composition is protein, but it's much harder to gain muscle without carbs,
because you need like the fuel to hammer the training.
Yeah, like
right?
there's pretty like, even if you go back and you look at the 80s when like these bodybuilders were eating like 500, 600, 1,000 grams of carbohydrate. Like there's body composition and protein are very, very important, but it's very difficult, and more importantly, it's difficult to put on big globs of muscle without carbohydrate.
Yeah, and I guess it's possible, but you got to be fucking hard and you got to be dumb, because you have to attack the training, and it's gonna be miserable. You're gonna be a miserable person without carbs hitting Jack Street, like. So that looks like what we would do is we'd start you probably, what do you think, John, 17 to 18 calories per pound of body weight at 10%?
Pretty much we'd have to, the first one I'd want to know was what he's eating presently.
Right.
I mean, if he's telling me, hey, I'm eating,
good point.
8 to 10, 8 calories a day, he's going to make gains off
off of 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And then you would stair step it up after that.
Yeah, so I'd start him like, what's the minimal effective dose to get him to gain weight, and then when he's stalled, we can up calories, or we can start to stair step, or we can do a little bit of zigzag or some other protocols.
So what we're talking about with stair step and zigzag is ultimately modifying daily caloric load or macronutrient balancing based on things like maybe it's training plus lifestyle, right? It's a busy day at work versus the weekends you're down, or maybe you're all over the place on the weekends and you need a stair step there. So, but at the end of the day, we're going to start you isocaloric and probably just hammer you into a baseline.
Yeah.
But then from there, we need to monitor your results. We need to monitor your body composition, your strength numbers, your measurements. And then based off of that, we're going to start to modify food selection, meal timing, and realistically like caloric loading and carbohydrates, right?
Yeah.
Those are kind of the big levers we pull for the bulk.
Yeah, I mean, to really bulk, food quality, I think, is important. I definitely would. I've seen people do the bulk with like, cheesesteaks, pizza, and ice cream, and just anything they can get their hands on. I think the problem, though, is as you're putting on that excess body weight and that fat, like if you're consuming a high amount of junk food, it just puts you in a bad place. Now, if you're trying to do this at 15, 16 years old, or even 18, 20, it's a little bit different. But I think for a guy like in his situation, I would look for the most nutrient dense, best food I could. And then once he gets rolling, and everybody runs in this. You guys ran into this. I ran into this. Like all of a sudden you're gaining weight and then it just stops.
Yes.
And you start adding more calories and all of a sudden it doesn't work. Like it actually started the more I started eating, the less weight I was gaining. And at that point, you almost have to like stop. Okay, hey, we got to get a new plan of attack, and that's when you kind of hit like a Hatfield zigzag diet, or what we use with the stair step, or some of the other protocols that we've used to kind of keep pushing that.
One thing that we could even do there, John, I think what we talked about in like our after action on the bulk, maybe a couple years after, is like just stop right there, stop the bulk, and go into a leaning protocol, or even like a maintenance phase when it starts to hit that plateau point, because you just got to change the stimulus almost, right? Like change something. And then, sure, so then let's say you're on your 20-pound weight gain quest and you've only gained 6 pounds, but you got to diet down and maybe you lose 1 pound of that lean mass, but then you start up again. Like it's a long road, as I say on my blog.
Sure.
Bedrock reset.
Yeah, so it is like a reset almost, and recomposition and recalibration, I think, would be if you hit that stall point and some of the, like you're saying, some of the zigzag or stair stepping isn't working. Maybe you just totally shift gears.
So I had a funny deal when I was playing the NFL. I had a body weight I was supposed to hit, and it was funny. If I trained real hard and I didn't eat enough and all of a sudden my body weight was down, I would take a rest day. And like as long as my body weight was like constant or gaining, I would train hard. But if all of a sudden I dropped like 3 pounds in one day,
peel back the volume,
then I would just like, today's a rest day. And we trained pretty much, the only day we took off was Sunday when I trained with Rolf. We were 6 days a week, but then all of a sudden I'd wake up, and if I was down, and it was crazy. Like I'd train, everything was great, we were moving, and then I'd wake up one day and I'd be down 5 pounds, even though I'd been monitoring all my calories. And I'd hit them up and be like, today's a rest day. And I would not do shit. Like I wouldn't leave the house. I would watch TV. I would hang out. I would eat. I would sleep. And I knew that today was the day I wasn't going to do anything. And all of a sudden the next day I'd go back, body weight was back up, and I felt fine. And it just that kind of deal. Whereas I think people have this idea like, oh, I'm going to miss a day. I'm going to be behind. No, like if my body weight was down, and because for me, I had a certain body weight that I had to weigh. Like they set our target weights.
Yeah,
and
it's your job.
Well,
right.
if I was too far below or too far, we ended up getting fined. And it's like, man, I can't crash on this body weight. And then it was interesting because John Meadows posted something. He was talking about getting ready for one of his bodybuilding shows, that all of a sudden, when his weight starts crashing, he knew he had to just stop doing what he was doing.
Yeah.
And I thought that, and I was like, man, that's really pretty interesting, because I ran into that same thing. I would just have these funny weight crashes, and I was like, not leaving the house today. I'm just going to eat. And I would just fucking pig out and lay around, and instantly my body would go back up, and next thing my training went up real well.
Were other players that you're familiar with as in control of their own diet and nutrition? Or did they just go?
Most of the guys I
did
knew.
Did Raf check in with you on that, or did you had control?
Raf, we never discussed nutrition. We never discussed any supplements. He just and I remember I asked him once, and he was like, well, you know way more about that shit than I do. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, all right. And he's like, I just figured we didn't have to talk about that. So, and because I had worked with Dr. DePasquale, and I had pretty good background in this stuff. And, I had enough experience, training with bodybuilders and some of those to know, hey, man, it's pretty funny, man. Back in the early days of the CrossFit football deal, Rolf made a really interesting comment. He's like, hey, if you're going to be training athletes that have to get bigger and how to put on lean body mass, and you're working with people that need to increase their size, you should probably understand a little bit about bodybuilding, because bodybuilding has figured out how to create bigger, leaner athletes. So like you have to look at that stuff and be like, okay, hey, these guys have figured this out. They've cracked this code. I have to apply some of this stuff. And so we had pretty good conversations with it. I mean, Rolf, if you've been around Rolf eats like he's starving at all times. I mean, it was unbelievable the amount of food that dude eat.
I've never seen him eat 1 calorie.
What?
No, I'm just kidding. But basically,
oh my, really? Wow, man. We would go out to dinner.
Lots of smoothies.
Oh, he did love him a smoothie. We'd go and get that this place in Tampa. He had a smoothie. It was called like the 800-pound gorilla, and it had 800 calories. He would go get that thing and like just slam 2 of those. And like we would go like we ate a lot of food, man. He was definitely not only a good person to train with, but like anytime we wanted to go eat, he was in.
Lots of sushi.
Did we miss anything, Tex? I think
we feel we hit it all. Nesting. So I feel that term to me.
What is nesting?
Meaning he's
getting
been
ready for a baby.
Inactive.
Yeah,
nesting.
They've been like getting the house ready.
I thought women nest. I didn't think guys nested.
It's a new world, John. The women expect us to participate
In nesting?
Yeah. So what you do is like watch them build a crib while you have a scotch.
I actually built everything. Actually, no, Kate helped. But the problem was, as we were laughing about it the other day, the water retention with twins is like exponential. And like she would like get up and her poor little feet were like squares. Like they
Hooves.
were like
Hooves.
squares with toes. And like I got her those Normatec like boots on her legs, and like we would try to like pump it out. And like, dude, I feel like the water retention was so bad. Like we were laughing about the other day. And then she's like, after I had the kids, like 10 days later, it like came back. And she was just like, I don't know what's going on with this.
Yeah, it is a gnarly process for those mamas.
I am so glad I'm not a woman, because I'm pretty sure dudes would have been like, nope, this is the end of the species. We ain't doing this.
And being a 6'5", 280-pound woman wouldn't really bode well for you.
Why? There's a lot of men out there that would be totally about it. Look at McQuilkin. If he could meet a 6'5", 280-pound woman,
do it, Tex.
She could just carry you around in her pocket.
My one regret. I want a woman who can change me like a baby.
Grab your legs and just.
Well, if you're out there, 6'5",
Male Cali, CALI.
Email
at
Cali.
powerathletehq.com.
Yeah, if you know a lady who's 6'5", 280, because she's not a lady unless she's 280.
That's 100% true. Call.
And ask for Tex.
Yeah, that's right. There you have it, folks. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you need guidance on nutrition, we're your guys. I mean, number one, this podcast is Exhibit A, but number two, go to powerathletehq.com/nutrition. We have bulking protocols that give you some direction and guidance on how to set your MyFitnessPal up to bulk, to lean, to hit a keto approach.
We also have some one-on-one coaching.
Yeah,
if you really need
100%.
somebody to take you on that journey, we have some amazing coaches that can help you get there.
Know who you are. If you if you're relatively autonomous with your relationship, like with food, like John was when he was with Rolf, the protocols are a no-brainer. Like they're just they fill the gap and they give you a system to follow, and it's going to work. If you're someone who needs a little bit of accountability and hand-holding, no shame. This is a hard thing to do. It's a very hard thing to do. So that's why we have coaches to help you out. powerathletehq.com/nutrition. And if you have a question, loyal listener, for McQuilkin, myself, the big guy, John, maybe one of our people in the Rolodex, we could phone a friend or something like that. Hit us up on the Power Athlete Hotline. The phone number, again, is 929-464-4640. That's 929-ING-0. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, bye.
Now it's time for you to empower your performance. Head to powerathletehq.com/training to choose from a number of programs to meet your specific performance goals. And if you like to break a mental sweat too, visit academy.powerathletehq.com and become a real stakeholder in you or your athlete's success. Until next time, bye!